Independence Elementary. It's Miss Bakerstall from my kitchen. I thought today that we would do a vocabulary lesson on comfort food. What's comfort food? Comfort food is an idea in the United States that when you don't feel very well and things don't seem quite right, this is the food that makes us feel better. Now, many people like sweet things, but when I think of comfort food, I think of the food that my grandmother and mother used to make. Today, we're gonna make beef vegetable stew. It's warm, it makes me feel good, and it's a little salty, which are the kinds of foods I like. Are you ready to get started? Okay. The first thing we need to do before you start cooking at any time is to make sure you have clean surfaces. You don't want the food that you use to get contaminated or to get germs on it by the surfaces that you're preparing the food on. So what I did, I took cleaning solution and paper towels and wiped down everything in the kitchen before I got any food out at all. Next, I washed my hands. I used antibacterial soap, made sure that nothing on my hands could hurt the food that I'm making and then hurt the people who eat it. That's very important because right now people are getting sick, so it's important to be clean, okay? Next, we need tools. Making food is kind of like building a house. You need tools to help you build it up, okay? So what are some of the tools I have? Well, first, I had to use a can opener. Next, I needed to use a knife. Next, I needed a spoon because you have to stir the stew every so often. The next tool I had was an oven, which I used to fry the ground beef. Next, I used a skillet. This is a very heavy skillet. I'm going to put it down. Next, I needed a spatula. The spatula helped me fry the ground beef. And the last tool, and probably the most important tool that I use when making a stew, is a crock pot. What's a crock pot? Well, a crock pot is a slow cooker which cooks stews. And as you can see, I've already started this stew because the broth takes longer to cook with the spices than with the other parts that go into it. Are you ready? What's in beef vegetable stew? Well, first, you have ground beef. I fry my ground beef with garlic. Next, we're going to put the ground beef into the broth. Very carefully because what we've already started cooking is pretty hot. Okay. Now we're going to take our spoon and stir it in. It smells good already. Next, of course, it's beef vegetable stew. We have to have vegetables. The first vegetable we put in is corn. I use yellow sweet corn, and that's going in. Next, and not everybody likes these, I use mushrooms. I don't like to cut them before I put them in because I like really nice and thick mushrooms in my soup. You can see a spoon is a very important tool to have when you're making the stew. Everything needs to be mixed in nice and evenly. Time for more vegetables. And this is probably where Mr. Dennis turned off the video. Green beans. I used fresh green beans, not green beans out of the can, because fresh green beans are crunchy and the stew has to cook for 6 to 8 hours. And if you use green beans from a can, they'll be mushy by the time you're finished. Here go the green beans. Next, onions. I use white onions because they have more flavor than sweet onions. It's starting to get full in there. It's getting kind of crowded. I have had a crock pot kind of explode on me before because I had too many vegetables in there. We're not going to do that today. Next, we used tomatoes. Now the tomatoes are already in the crock pot because they need some time to cook and make the broth have really good flavor. Next, I used what's called tomato paste, which is really thick. It's kind of like spaghetti sauce, okay? But what it does is it makes, let me show you. It makes the broth look very red. Now, what you might be able to see in here are some of the spices that I used in the broth. Well, what are spices? So this is my spice rack. And spices are things like sage and Italian seasoning, dill weed, bay leaves, paprika. Lots of things go into making food taste good. Now, I saved 2 things for last. I saved the celery and the carrots because I wanted you to see what the word chop means. Now, I'm going to be using a tool that we haven't talked about yet. I'm going to use a cutting board. You need to chop vegetables on a cutting board. If you use your countertop, you'll scratch the countertop. So, what do we do first before we chop vegetables? We need to wash the vegetables. Because even though you buy them in the grocery store and they're new, other people may have touched them with their hands. So you want to make sure that you wash them. Very well. Let's start with the carrots. First, you're probably used to carrots being orange, aren't you? Right? That makes sense. But did you know that carrots can be purple or white or red? And even sometimes there are some carrots that are so dark they almost look black. Okay? So what does it mean to chop? Oh, wait. I can't chop these yet. They've got stuff on the outside. I'm going to use another tool. I'm going to use my peeler. I'm just going to peel off the outside of the carrot to make sure I don't get, carrots have hair. Did you know that? Carrots have hair all over the outside of them. See, look. Can you see the hair on the carrot? I don't want to eat carrot hair. So we're just going to take the carrot hair off. There we go. And time for the orange carrots. Oh, hey, there's a person who hangs out in my kitchen. Hi. Guess who else likes carrots? Ginger likes carrots. Dogs like carrots a lot because carrots have natural sugar in them. And Ginger kind of hangs out with me in my kitchen just waiting for me to drop food. Yeah, you eat the crumbs, eat the crumbs. There you go. Okay, what does it mean to chop? I'm going to use my tool, my knife, and we are going to chop up some carrots. I find that carrots are some of the more difficult vegetables to cook in a soup because it takes a long time for them to get soft. So I'm going to go right from the cutting board into the stew. Now the purple carrot. And I'm chopping, 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 chopping. Look at that. Did you know that the inside of a purple carrot was white? I didn't. Do you want a purple carrot? Purple carrot? Oh. And into the stew. Next is the white carrot. Now, you should not be using knives like this at home. Only an adult should be doing this. Because even though I'm an adult, I have cut myself before. These are very sharp knives. Whoops, runaway carrot. There you go. Runaway carrot. Good girl. Okay, next is my celery. So I'm going to wash my celery off. And we're going to chop the ends off our celery and get ready to put them in the stew. Okay, and that is our last ingredient to go in. We're going to stir this everything in and the last bit of the vegetables. Okay. And it looks like I might need just a little more beef broth. Now, where to go? Beef broth. What is broth? Well, broth is when they cook meat and they take the water out after cooking the meat and it still tastes like the meat, in this case, beef. I'm gonna stir it in. And there you have it. If you look at a spoonful, this is what vegetable beef stew looks like. And if you look at the timer on the crock pot, you can see that we need almost 4 hours left. So this is not going to be ready to eat until about dinner time. Thank you for cooking with me today and learning some new vocabulary. Maybe next time I'll make something sweet for those of you out there. Bye.